Look at this. They left me all by myself. And you guys know I hate to talk, but I'm going to talk and I'm going to answer your questions. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris. I'm Mike Catalana, all by myself today to answer your questions. As always, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. This is the You Ask, We Answer video on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Stellar Roofing, Windows, and Siding. They are our sponsor. You are our viewers and listeners who want to ask some questions. This is coming off the Bills' win to open up the season at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Yes. Have you now taken a breath? It has been a few days. You watched the Bills get a win, and it was a close one. So we've got some good questions. I'm going to go over some of the answers, some of what I think about what happened in that game based on what you guys are talking about. And I'm going to begin with the one that I think has probably gotten the most attention from Sunday's victory. And this one comes from Tommy Dohopolsky, 768. I think I have that correct. Tommy, thanks for sending in a question. Do you think McDermott should have gone for it on the fourth down late in the game? You know what we're talking about. Bills up by 3. 2 minutes to go in the game, and they have a 4th and 3. And they decide to kick the field goal. A lot goes into this. I've gone back and forth in my mind. I'm going to say this to begin. In a regular circumstance like that, I'm taking my chance with Josh Allen. But I don't always think it is so cut and dried that it has to be that way. I'm taking my chance because I'm already up 3. And if I don't get it, it's bad because a field goal ties the game. And the result of what you saw from the Cardinals, they probably would have been able to kick a field goal. A touchdown beats me. Okay. In this case, make the field goal. So you take the field goal out of the mix. Now, the result worked for the Bills because they did stop them. They couldn't kick a field goal, and the Bills won. A touchdown beats you. That last play, I got to say, was close. I don't think it was interference, but you never know in the NFL. And they could have had the ball at the goal line looking to try to take a touchdown to win the game. So the reason I'm saying I would normally go for it is because I have Josh Allen. Now, a lot played into that. When we talked to McDermott after the game, he said it was a little more than 3. It was like a 3.5. Okay. And he did get banged up. We know he's got the wrist on the left hand. It did not appear to impact him because they put him under center after he was injured. I just think while I have faith in the Bills defense, and it's easy to say, well, they've given up, they did survive in a lot of those games last year. I don't know how. But it does take you to the last second. You think about the one they lost to Denver, the one they almost lost to the Giants. Like when you put it on that moment, it's tough. You take your chances with Allen. But I also think by the score, it didn't, if it puts you up by 8, if you were up 5 and it puts you up 8, I think I'm kicking it because you protect yourself. Worst case, they score a touchdown and get 2, you go to overtime. Didn't put you up 8. It put you up 6. So the other thing is sometimes I think people have to keep in mind, and I know you do, but when you're trying to protect at the end of a game, sure, you got to stop. The game's over. It's 4 downs. It's 4 downs. It's tough to stop a team on 4 downs. And the clock, there was enough time. The clock didn't really become a factor. And late in the game, I don't know what the Cardinals were doing on that run play late, but it was great for the Bills. So this is how McDermott gets labeled as not aggressive enough. I'm going to say I'm siding with you if you think he should have gone for it on this play. Because of the score and the circumstances, they won. I think he realizes that could have gone either way, and he probably should have been more aggressive, but he put faith in his defense, and in the end, they bailed him out. But it didn't do enough. The field goal didn't do enough for me. There's people who reference that as the field goal of death because you kick it, you get it, and then you got to play defense. And you had to kick off after what had happened the last time. So It's my take. I'm not crushing him for it. He's not the only coach in the league that would have done it. He is more willing to take risks than the average coach in the NFL. I think he should probably even take a few more because he has 17 a quarterback. So at the moment when it happened, I guess I kind of thought maybe a little old school of it's 2 scores. Yep, not 2 scores. It's a touchdown, not a field goal. As I thought about it more in that case, if there was less time on the clock, if there was like 35 seconds, something like that, I might have kicked the field goal. Then it makes sense. Well, there was time. And then you had to watch him go down the field. All right, here we go. This one comes from, let me see. Miguel C, I believe it is, 236. Says, what was your biggest surprise and what was your biggest disappointment from the game? Biggest surprise for me, honestly, I think was the play of Cam Lewis when he got a bunch of snaps with Taron Johnson out. You really didn't notice Cam. There was some confusion, I think, early in the game. And it's tough to tell if it was Dorian Williams or Cam in terms of coverage. And I think, at that time, the Cardinals, with their misdirection, it appeared to be going at Dorian Williams. They were getting guys open, crossing the field. But Cam Lewis made some plays. And I know he's been around, and they always talk about having faith in these players. I'll go to the line. Depth is a great thing until you have to use it. Well, if you do have depth, it's good that it's a guy who has been around, and they do have a lot of faith. People point to Justin Jefferson. Okay, so he didn't make a play on the best receiver in the NFL, and you would have liked to see him knock that ball down. But I think the guy more than acquitted himself well, and that just surprised me because, first of all, it surprised me because Taron is just out there all the time. And as I'm recording this, we don't know how long Taron's going to be out. He's obviously missing the Miami game. I don't like seeing that guy not on the field because I think he and Bernard are they're 2 best players on defense. And there's another guy I want to talk about. But that being said, he surprised me. I think my biggest disappointment in this game was that they did not get the ball to Kincaid. Now, understanding, I think, as we've talked about a lot here, if you're a defense and you're starting out with the Bills, especially with all the questions about what this wide receiver room is going to look like, I think Dalton Kincaid is the guy you want to take out. And it certainly appeared they were rolling coverage towards Kincaid. But I think obviously in the long term for this season, Kincaid's going to get a lot of targets. They're going to figure ways to get it to him. And they didn't throw the ball as much. I mean, Josh ran it and they did run the ball a lot to Cook. But at the same time, that and that Curtis Samuel was really a no-show in the game. I know he's coming off that injury, but he was dressed. And I would like to see him get targets. I would like to see him even be involved in the running game in some sort. Maybe that happens in Miami. Maybe they were trying to put that together for this week, and they went with other things, and maybe that'll be the case. But I don't think you brought Curtis Samuel in to get his snaps were in the teens. I think maybe it was 18, something like that, and really had no place in the offense. Let's continue here. Hollywood Paladin, Paladin, Paladin. Can we stop all the bass? He said heat. I guess you could say heat. I think he might have meant hate. And he said, the man is a boss. This is an old man take here. Not really. Why, if you criticize anybody, is it hate? I don't hate Tyler Bass. I want to see Tyler Bass kick well so they keep him on the team and he starts knocking them all through and they don't have to worry about kicker because he's a guy they already paid. I do not believe people hate Tyler Bass. I tell you this. We tell you this. Dan, Jenna, myself. We tell you all the time what we hear from the coaches, what we see when they're on the field. That's why we appreciate you watching us. We're there. We're at the games. We're at practice. There's a lot of people who comment. Some of them really know their football, but they're not around the team as much. They don't hear as much. And I think sometimes they just go on Bass is a good example. If you're not at practice, you don't seem not looking good at practice. So in this case, we know there was a concern, and I think it's still there. But he knocked all his field goals and extra points through. Um, the kickoff going the other way, there's been a lot of talk. I had a couple of questions about why not kick it through the end zone. With these new rules, I think I'd kick all of them through the end zone, but I think wind was a big factor going that way, getting the ball through the end zone. But Bass kicked it well. Take a breath, go on to Miami. This is a what have you done for me lately league, and they need to see him make his kicks. And they'll have the more he does well, the better if he does this again and again, the leash gets a little longer. They're not looking to replace him. They're just hoping this goes on. But at some point during the year, if he runs into problems, they're going to be concerned. But for right now, I think Bass acquitted himself well, and it isn't hate. You want him to kick well. That's what it is. So I look at it that way. Okay. Let's go to, this is from Ralph Wilson Sr. Nice title. Okay. Did you observe Groot? He's talking about Greg Rousseau at right defensive end at camp. He did play on the right against Tua being a lefty. He says, Ralph Wilson Sr. here says, Babbitt's just going to let him eat from the blind side. He'll get 20 sacks and get the big bag. Now, I'd love to see that. I predicted here, credit to me, he'd get 10 or more. And as I mentioned in our video on Sunday night, he is on pace for 51. That is a joke. I think he might get to 49. By the way, that is also a joke. No, he got 3 sacks in the game. I don't care about the competition. He got to the quarterback, and he set the edge, and he made plays in the run game. I think you move him around. I think when Mike McDaniel's coming up with this game plan, he's looking for 50. I don't think he is Bruce Smith. I don't think he's Von Miller in his prime. I don't think he's a Bosa. I think he can become the guy that the other team starts their defensive game plan with. And he looked good. So they'll move him around. Move him around where he's comfortable and he can do the most damage, because he is by far your number one pass rusher. And they're going to need pass rush. I mean, Tua likes to get rid of the ball. Get your hands up. He likes to do it in rhythm. That's the way he likes to throw. And they're going to need people to do that. But Rousseau back in Miami coming off the edge, let's see what he does. But yeah, Babbage would love to see that young man put up big numbers and get himself a big contract. They already did commit to the 5th year for Greg Rousseau. And I think one game in, great. So let's see where he is. But he was trending in that direction. All right. We have another question. It says, Jessica Alba 8335. Jessica, just want to say, always been a big fan. I'm not sure if this is you. I don't know if you're a Bills fan, but this Jessica Alba 8335 says, how can the Bills defense slow down Miami when they couldn't take care of Arizona, who's a bottom 5 offense? This is what I'm going to tell you. Things don't travel week to week. You can hope so. If you become this dominant offense or defense, and week to week, you are just dictating to another team, maybe you could look at it that way, like no one can do anything with the 85 Bears or the Ravens in their prime or whatever it is. That's not the way it usually works in this league. It was the first game. I thought the Cardinals had a really good plan early. Thought they caught the Bills with that misdirection that we were talking about. But I think in the second half, when they made some adjustments after seeing what Arizona wanted to do, they really shut them down. They had that kick return, which makes it look, it was 17-3 at halftime. And Arizona was sort of doing what they wanted offensively. Second half, it changed a lot. And that's how the Bills ended up winning the game. But at the same time, I don't think that necessarily translates to Miami. Miami's a totally different team. And the Bills have done a good job against the Miami Dolphins and that speed. I know they have Tyreek Hill. I know they have Jalen Waddle. I know they have speed all over the place, and we're going to talk about the Dolphins. Dan and Fates and I are heading down there on Wednesday and have reports from down in Miami. But I don't think it translates one team to another. I mean, yes, you want to play well, you want to play your best, but I think there's such changes week to week with teams. They're How do I put this? Are they comfortable playing against the Dolphins? I don't think the Dolphins make anybody comfortable. They can crush you with one play, boom, 80 yards. We've seen it happen before. But I do think McDermott and Babbage and this franchise defensively have done a pretty good job against Miami, even with all that speed, to keep them down and then to allow Josh Allen to do what he does against the Dolphins. So I don't think you just go, wow, they had a tough time with Kyler Murray. What are they going to do with Tua with all his speed at receiver? Not saying it can't happen. I'm saying I don't think one means anything for the other one. And that gets me to this point. Kay Glizzy asked, do you think the coaches were planning for Miami at the same time as they were planning for the Cardinals? I'm always fascinated by this because I do believe there's an element of this. I don't believe it goes to the players yet. Players' focus solely has to be on the Arizona Cardinals for that game. You cannot be putting things in players' heads about what you're going to do the next week. But it was the first game of the year. And they're really game planning for the Cardinals, all through the training camp, I would say past camp. But we were at practice maybe 2 weeks before the season started, and they were running scout team. Now, they weren't running scout team for the preseason game against the Colts. I mean, they were running scout team for what Murray and company were going to do. So they did have a little extra time. Those coaches have so much work to do to get some of it done on the Dolphins, a team they know well, and then to make adjustments based on what they saw in the Jacksonville game. Absolutely, I believe there was time the coaches were starting to put things together. They had some general plans for what they would want to do and then make adjustments once they see what happens Sunday, because it's tough to turn right around. It's travel day too on Wednesday. Go down there and try to just automatically go, now let's turn our attention to the Dolphins. But they get ready for the Dolphins all the time. This defense has, these players, most of them have. While, they've made changes on the defense, there's a lot of guys who have been there. And they've seen what they try to do against Miami. I mean, it's no secret. You got to tackle in space. You saw Tyreek Hill on the play that got them back into the game. He's down the sidelines. You just have to be ready for that speed and get him out of bounds. But in terms of game planning, I think they already have a general idea because of the times they've gone against Miami. And then I do believe there is some preparation done by the coaching staff to get themselves ready, that when they turn the page on the Cardinals, and that was Sunday night, it's pretty quick. They get right into Miami. They'll go over some of the stuff. They do some self-scouting. But at that point, it is some small corrections. Not small. Quickly, they get through corrections, and they get right to the Dolphins because, they had basically have a walkthrough and a short practice on Tuesday, and then they travel on Wednesday, and you're back out there on the field on Thursday. So same thing for Miami. They know the Bills well, so I guess that's the positive of it being the second of the two teams, but it also works that way. I know the Bills have made a lot of changes, and they have a lot of new personnel, which probably adds another wrinkle for what Miami has to worry about. But at the same time, 17's there, and they know that's 70% of their 85% of their game plan. So that also helps. I also have another question here. This is from Dave Altman. He didn't write it. He told me. He wants to know why we don't post more of our videos as audio pods. And we are available on all of your audio streaming sites. And you know what, Dave? I'm going to make sure that this video is posted to the Buffalo Plus audio podcast sites. You can go to iHeart, Stitcher, any of those places. Just put in Buffalo Plus. It's growing and growing on the audio side too. So tell your friends too. You get up in the morning, you're going to the gym, pop the headphones on, taking the dog for a walk. I don't care what you're doing. You're at work. You don't want to pay attention. You pretend like you're on the phone. Put in the Buffalo Plus podcast. So Dave, you ask, we answer. That's what we're talking about. I mentioned the content. So we're heading to Miami. Dan and I will be down there on Wednesday, Thursday evening at about 6:30 to a little past 7 o'clock. We're trying to stay on as long as we can. When you're on the sidelines at an NFL stadium, there's a certain point they chase all of us out of there. But we'll be on the sidelines. Jenna, Dan, and myself. Jenna will be in studio. We will be down at the game. And we will be live. We'll be answering your questions leading right up to the game. So it's going to be a lot of fun as the Bills head down to Miami to play against the Dolphins. And then we will have certainly always, as always, our post-game podcast. Keep in mind, this is a night game that will be posted first thing on Friday morning, along with, Dave, for you, the audio podcast. So that's going to do it for You Ask, We Answer, presented by Stellar, who does the job, roofing, windows, and siding. That's going to do it for me. Kind of lonely in here, but the team's back together again. For Dan Fates and, of course, for Jenna Cottrell, I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris, and we will see you next time.